today? I'm super excited to be coming your way in what is my first live broadcast for the year. How are you? And how has it been with you? I want to believe that you guys are having a great time and you're having a swell time. Now, I know that this is coming earlier than I usually would normally do the stream because today is just one of those days that for my 4 o'clock, it's going to be very busy. I'm not going to be close to my laptop. So I have to do this ahead of time. And I'm hoping that you guys can catch up with this and learn from it. Okay, so how are you doing? Okay, how are you doing? How are you doing? Wherever you're joining from, what's going on with you? I want to believe that you are having a swell time, and you are having a great, great, great time. Okay, so one of the things that we do in my global classroom, because I always say that one of the things you will get from my what's it called, from any of my broadcasts or any of my sessions is basically insight, and you'll get knowledge, right? So if you want to make quick money, I'm not the kind of person for you. But if you want to really become the best version of yourself, you want your relationship to work, your marriage to work, your family to work, I'm your plug, because I don't do shallow stuff. I do depth, right? And that depth, can no longer be controverted. We've done it across different countries, and even though we don't brag, so that people don't think we are proud, but we know what we know, and we know what we do, and we know the impact and the effects of what we do. Okay, so last week, if you've not listened to my session last week, then you need to go to my YouTube page. By the way, if you are not yet subscribed to that YouTube page, that's the best school in the world you can attend, and it's absolutely free. So many a time people say to me, Prince, we can afford your services. And I say to them, why are you trying to pay me when you can actually get a lot on my YouTube? Because you don't need to pay me if you're on my YouTube page, right? Except you have private issues and you want me to create a bespoke program for you. Now, today, what are we looking at in my global school today? I want to look at mastering the intimidating spouse. Now, you can do me a good favor by telling me where you're joining from, and you can drop where you're joining from. Hey, Mary Jane, how are you? That's Mary Jane, I think from Abuja. Yeah. Okay, you can tell me where you're joining from, and we will learn together. Right. So, and if you have any question, feel free to ask me. By the way. Okay. So, mastering the intimidating spouse. A lot of people you know, get married and they don't understand the basic things. I work with marriages across different cultures, across the world, different countries. Sometimes I don't even know the country I'm dealing with because the time zones are just all over the places, right? And some of the things people get to pay me for are things that I'm wondering, hey, what did you learn before you get married? Because they are so basic and simplistic that in my premarital sessions or any of the people who have gone through family system engineering certification program, that's too basic, right? But I realize that a lot of people come into marriage, right, just the way they are, without even understanding who they are. And if they don't understand who they are, how do they understand their spouses, right? So this is a major, major, major issue that you found over time when you're working with couples. So someone says, my husband is a wicked man. There is a buzzword that many people use right now when they are dealing with a tough husband or a tough wife, right? And for you to use that word, the person needs to be clinically diagnosed. But the person has not been clinically diagnosed, but everyone will use that word when things don't go their way. Instead of admitting that, yes, maybe I don't have the required skill or the worldview or the understanding to deal with a personality like this. So many people you call wicked husbands also don't know that maybe some of them shouldn't even have gotten married, right? But because the world puts a lot of pressure on everyone to say, go get married, go get married, go get married. So because the people you call bad and wicked spouse oftentimes are very successful at work. Now, for you to be successful at work, you also deal with a measured relationship. Now, if the same thing your spouse is complaining about as bad as wicked, is what is making the person succeed out there, then we need to review and audit what is going on. I personally believe that there are some guys who should not even get married, right? They can live their lives, but not marriage, because whilst they bully their way in the workplace, and that is acceptable over there in the family because it's a lot of emotion, that may not be acceptable. So if you don't now have a spouse who has that awareness and that understanding, that becomes a problem. Now, so who is an intimidating spouse? I mean, I read a quote that says, without communication, there is no relationship, and without respect, there is no love. Without trust, there is no reason to continue, right? But you see, Tony Robbins says that to effectively communicate, we must realize that we're all different in the way we perceive the world, and use this understanding as a guide to our communication with others, right? The way you perceive the world is totally different from your spouse. And oftentimes, when we don't know this, we want everyone to see things the way we see things. And when people don't see things the way we see things, we think they're either biased or they don't understand what we're going through. The truth is, nobody can actually understand what you're going through. So stop telling people, understand what you're going through. Understand, nobody will ever understand what you're going through. However, what you're going through is also valid. Now, along that validity now comes a sense of responsibility to say, okay, now I know what I'm going through. I've isolated it. I understand it. What am I going to do? You see, when knowledge expands, we call it expanded awareness, then humanity develops the capacity to handle what looks threatening with smiles on their faces. It's called contact without contamination in systems intelligence. Now, some other day I will teach about that. There is a kind of spouse called the intimidating spouse. Now, if you are married to an intimidating spouse, if you have a spouse or a boyfriend or someone in your life who looks like the king of the road, it can even be a boss, right? They look like the king of the road. They want to be in control. They want to take charge of people, take charge of things. They are workaholic in nature, but for them, work is first, work is second, work is third, maybe love is fourth. Now, even when they're in love, they're trying to be transactional, and it's looking like they're trying to use you to get something. They experience fits of anger when their goals are not met. They cannot tolerate delay. Are you in love with someone who is giving you too many projects, all kinds of projects that you don't even know whether you're in a relationship with them or you're in a relationship with yourself? Now, if you are in the relationship with this kind of people, you need to understand that there are basic things that stands them out from other people. Now, for this kind of person, they see life as a battle. They are very insensitive to feelings, not because they're wicked, but because they're not even sensitive to themselves. They do not excuse themselves, so it's very tough for them to excuse other people. The greatest fear, however, with all the drama you see in them, is that they don't want to be taken advantage of. So the bullying nature is actually a front to mask the quest not to be taken advantage of, right? Now, if you are married to this person, fighting them back may not be the way, right? You need to persist and serve them because they respond to superior service delivery, patience, and competence. What does that simply mean? It means that your esteem must not be burdened, because sometimes when they're angry, they say the things they don't mean, and their words can be hurting. But you see, if you insulate yourself from what they're saying and you picture them as someone who is experiencing, fits of emotions and anger, or someone who is acting the role of a angry husband and things like that, instead of getting upset, you are smiling because you are watching the scene in the movie of their lives. Are you with me? Now, this kind of guy, we call them the intimidating. They have all kinds of profile, all kinds of degree, all kinds of courses, one thing or the other. Their strength, they are very blunt, right? They are they have high work rates. Their greatest weakness is that in a relationship, they are involved in too many projects that sometimes they can even forget your birthdays, right? But like I said, the greatest fear is being taken advantage of, but they are motivated by the capacity to handle people, the capacity to lead. They bulldoze their way. If you stand in their way, they're likely going to crush you. right? But when they are upset, they get into anger when goals are not met. So if you agree on something and you don't do your part, it gets them upset. And when they're upset, they become very uncontrollable. In fact, some people call them mad, right? But I don't think they're mad. That's just the way they are. They can't stand disappointment. So if they are upset, for them to recover, you need to engage in physical activities, right? Now, they need to develop listening skills. They need to see people as beings and not just as things to be used, right? So you see these guys are top CEOs, you see them in pioneering, dog work that required a lot of dogged, a bullish tendency kind of, that's where you see them. Now, one thing you must not do if you're married or in a love relationship with these people, don't argue with them because you're not simply going to win that argument. However, if you are competent and you develop your own personal power, because the language the intimidating person understands is also competence on the part of the spouse. Now, you see, most of the time, the way you see them and the way they see themselves is not the same. So oftentimes, if you have a spouse that you see as arrogant, combative, reckless, headstrong, autonomous, tactless, dictatorial, pushy, predatory, if you see a spouse that you think as a reckless, you think that they are very disrespectful, they are conceited, they are obsessive, and you see them as headstrong. If that is the way you see them, you need to understand that that is not the only way you should perceive them. Because I often say to people that for every, in accounting, they taught us that for every debit and credit entry, there's a corresponding debit entry or something like that. Now, I say to people that for every bad behavior that you see, there is also the positive side to it. For example, if you say to your child, do not argue with people. Do not argue with people. Everything an adult says, an elderly person says, you say yes. What if the elderly person is trying to rape your child? Right? That's what you call stubbornness, is what will stand your child out in those times. So the same way you see them as arrogant, they see themselves as bold, you see them as combative, they see themselves as competitive, they are risk-taking, they have a positive outlook to what you see as a negative tendency. But guess what? Out there is a whole lot of people clapping for them for what you classify as negative outlook. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't hurt people in relationship. And that's why if you are an intimidating spouse, you need to listen to me. The world does not revolve around bullies, because even though that is what it seems you do all the time, you bully your way, you get your way, but you need to understand that you are in a relationship with a human being. You are not in a relationship with a thing. So you cannot command your spouse the way you command them at work. You command them at work because they know the consequence for not responding to you is the fact that they get fired or something like that. You can't bring that home. So you need to step out of the tugger of the intimidating you, or else you are going to sabotage your spouse, sabotage your children. All those fathers that when their children hear the blaring of the horn, they run into hiding. Ideally, a proper father, your children should run towards you, not run away from you. If you are an intimidating spouse and you don't work on it, your children will run away from you. Your spouse will run away from you. Your spouse want to talk to you. They have to do sign of the cross. Your spouse cannot say their mind because they don't know your response to things. Because oftentimes when they're talking to you, you want to, cut them short and assume that you know what they want to say, which is not proper when it comes to effective communication in a marriage, right? So if you are an intimidating spouse, you need help, and you need to admit that you need help and get help, preferably even from your spouse. Let them be able to tell you if you are improving or not, right? And also, but if you're married to them, you need to also help them. If you want to talk to them, you might want to ask, please, can I get 10 minutes of your time? And you go straight to the point. Now, what do you need to do if you are married to this person? Number one, you need to predetermine the perceptual code you want to use for everyone. And even if you are an intimidating spouse, you need to predetermine, because intimidating spouse, they see people mostly as things, not that they sit down and say, I'm going to see them as things, but because they want to achieve a lot of projects, they mess things up that way. So what you need to do if you're an intimidating spouse, I want you to begin to see the people in your life, as royalties. Now, if you see them as royalties, because the intimidating spouse is not actually rude, he has the people he respects. He respects people that he feel are above him. So the same way, you have to look at your family and your spouse as royalties that you respect, right? And so you know that while you talk to people anyhow, you can talk to your spouses anyhow. And so if you are their spouse as well, you want to get to the point where you look at them and you do not feel offended when they're in their feet, because you know that sometimes they can't differentiate between work pressure and family pressure. So when they get into that feet, what you need to do is just expand your awareness and play a video of, I have a man who is joined Nollywood or Hollywood and is acting the role of the hungry husband. So once that is the switch that you have in your mind. I mean, I taught a lot of women this and it's worked for them. So instead of getting angry, you are simply saying the scene in the movie. Number two, predetermine the signal you want to always send, right? Whether you're the spouse or you are the intimidating spouse, you want predetermine the signal you want to send. So if I say praise is dash, what is the signal I want to send? If I say praise is nice, right? So it means that I want to send a signal of niceness everywhere I go, because there is no point when the people around you cannot be honest with you, when the people around you are trying to tell you what they want you to, what you want to hear, not what they really want to say to you. Many intimidating spouses are like that. Your spouse cannot tell you the truth about themselves. The people around you cannot tell you the truth about themselves. You need to become a better person, right? And one of the ways is to predetermine the signal you want to send. So if you say Shola or Kunle or James is compassionate, if compassion is the anchor you want to use, you work for that word consistently in your thoughts, in your action, in your communication, because communication is often an offshoot of our perception of people. How we perceive people determine how we receive them. How we receive them determine how we engage them, and how we engage them determines the value we derive from that relationship. So it starts from how you see people. If how you see people is everyone is a reality, everyone is my link to the palace, then it changes the dynamics of you perpetually want to be nice, you perpetually want to be good behaved around them. Now, number three, appoint your accountability team who will keep you in check. So if you are their spouse and you're getting worked up, you need to get a support group. But if you are the intimidating spouse, you need an accountability group that can look you in the face and keep you in check, or pay them a fine for every time you fall short. Then create your trigger and response code and communicate ahead. So for example, if you know you're getting angry, right, I recommend in many families use the red card and the yellow card, right? If you notice that your spouse is talking to you and you're getting worked up, right, you can just call for timeout or yellow card time. What that means is, please let me go and settle my head so that I can come back to this conversation because I'm already getting worked up, right? Anyone can flash the yellow card, and your family can predetermine that once the yellow card is flashed, people need to keep quiet and just go to the shell, then they can come back together. So you need to communicate ahead, especially because you are always pressured as a result of many projects. So every time you're pressured, communicate to your spouse. Let them know that it's got nothing to do with them, because sometimes the aggression you transfer has nothing to do with what your spouse has said. It could be the pressure from work, the pressure of a project, the bills that you have to pay, and many of the things you're going through. So someone has to be able to remind you, right? And so you need to create your trigger and create your response code. And on the long term, you need to watch your stressors. Patterns are predictors of the future. So if you look back and think of how you get angry and how you get worked up and how it seems like you're using people, if you look back at those patterns, you would see what triggers it, and you can really, really adjust that. Then attack the space between stimulus and response. So we say that between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your freedom. Now, so what do you need to do when it comes to attack the space between stimulus and response? So if you want to get angry, right, you can do a countdown. So you are getting worked up. Now, don't count 1 to 60, count 60 to 1 or 60 to 0. You are counting down. What it does is it changes your breathing pattern. Oftentimes, it's the breathing that is responsible for the emotions that people feel. Once you slow down your breathing, you become very reasonable again. All of us have the capacity and the tendency to be animalistic when we are no longer thinking or when we're not using our reasoning faculty. So you can do a countdown every time you feel agitated, right? And sometimes if you are their spouse, when they think they're not in the mood, please, you need to pause, right? And when you pause, and you look at the mood and you realize that they are not in the right frame of mind, you postpone. That's the next P, right? And then when you observe that you are postponed and they are in high spirit, then the next P, you present, right? And when you present the same day and not responding to you, playfully persist, right? Don't just go there and say, what about? No. You need to playfully, which means you need to activate your sense of humor to persist till they do your bidding. So it's pause, postpone when they are not in the mood, present when they are in the mood, playfully persist. Those are the 4 P's that you use in there. Then second to the last, name your aggression for what it is, right? And don't excuse it, right? So you say to yourself, oh, nuclear weapon, and you know the meaning of nuclear weapon, you are ready to burn out the whole world. And I don't think that's what you want to do, right? So when you know that you are a nuclear weapon within you, and once you release the nuclear weapon, you can destroy the entire planet. That's not what you want. You don't want to destroy your entire family. So if that is what you call your anger, then how do we reduce your anger from nuclear weapon to maybe grenade? How do we reduce from grenade, to AK-47? How do we reduce from AK-47 to a pistol? How do we reduce from pistol to a banger or a knockout? How do we reduce from knockout to maybe to something that is non-existent, to bliss, kind of, right? So it's a different level. So if you look at your anger and your reaction right now, how would you, what would you call it? Is it a nuclear weapon? Is it a pistol? Is it AK-47? Is it a grenade? Whatever it is, right? You need to bring it down till you come back to diplomacy, because diplomacy is how you win in any relationship. And lastly, you need to introduce an open day system. Open day is the day in the family where everyone is permitted to say whatever they want to say the way they want to say it. Now, what we do during open day is to prevent pent-up emotion. We always say that every member of the family should express their mind the way you literally vent. But in that venting, you are not accusatory. So during open day, 1, everybody must say what they want to say the way they want to say it. 2, whatever is said cannot be used against the person that said it. 3, nobody gets angry during open day. And number 4, if what is said is significant, you need to pay attention to it and change, right? And so if you're hurting your spouse in a particular way and they brought it to your notice, don't speak against it and don't talk it away. You need to make a commitment to say, okay, observe me. I'm going to carefully pay attention and I will get better. I hope this has been helpful for all of you out there. You see, the biggest communication problem is we do not listen to understand, we listen to reply. From today, don't listen to reply, right? You need to listen to understand. Create a presence of mind in a way that when your spouse is talking to you, you can hold their hand, you can keep the phone away. Every time you fiddle with your phone when your spouse is talking to you or when your children are talking to you, what you're communicating is there is someone out there that is more important and more urgent who deserve your attention other than them. Don't multitask. It's better for you to say, please, can I get to you in 10 minutes? Let me just quickly answer this person so that you can give them your full attention. Every time you don't give them your full attention, you have the tendency to forget what they're saying to you. You have the tendency to, undermine what they're saying, the enormity of what they're saying. And because you're not looking at their body language, there are things they are not saying that you cannot pick, right? So if you are an intimidating spouse, you can do better. And if you're married to them, please stop calling them labels that people on social media who don't understand the basics of diagnosis are calling them. They can get better. Everyone can get better, especially if you have a spouse who is doing so well at work, but maybe they're not doing so well in the relationship. They have the capacity. It will only take some time. I hope this has been helpful. Every Thursday, I come live and I share this. Usually it's about 4 p.m. CXT, which is about 11 p.m. West African time, right? But I have to come early today because I have to do some stuff. You can go on YouTube page, press forward live, and subscribe to my YouTube page. You can follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook as well. And if you are a family life coach or an aspiring family life coach, I have a class that is coming up the last Saturday and Sunday of this month. You want to join that class? It's somewhere in my bio. You can register. right? And trust me, or you can go to www.ifedacademy.com/soar. SOAR is SOAR, right? To register for that class, it promises to be enlightening because the rules of family life coaching has changed across the globe. If you are still caught up in your past, you are going to totally go into extinction, and you don't want that. Thank you very much for joining me, wherever you're joining from. For those of you on Facebook, on social, on Instagram, and those of you on YouTube, I'll see you some other time. Till then, keep loving, keep living. For those of you who are going to see this subsequently, I love you. I celebrate you, and I do not take for granted the fact that you're joining me on this show. It's my global classroom every Thursday. I'll see you next week, Thursday. Till then, keep loving, keep living, and know that I love you. Bye-bye.